This is Lake Hills Talks. You're listening to Season 1, Episode 7. I had the chance to sit down with Willie Carr, official name Galen Carr, who is the teacher of what's called the Heaven Bound Sunday School class. I thought this conversation would be helpful to us as we consider the perspective of somebody older in our church who's been here for 34 years. It's going to be helpful for us who are younger as we think about what it might be like if and when we lose our spouse. I hope it'll also be encouraging to those of you who have had to say goodbye to a spouse and are processing through that grief. Brother Willie shares a lot about those things today in this podcast, and I pray it's helpful for you. I also ask him about what his thoughts are about the church and our direction, and even about elders. Hope you'll listen intently. We'll see you after the break. Well, thank you for spending the time with me today.
Okay. You're welcome.
We're here in the kitchen of your next to youngest daughter.
Correct.
And your son-in-law. Favorite son-in-law?
Pretty close. They're all pretty equal.
That's the diplomatic way of saying that. Yeah.
Don't get into trouble.
Yeah, I already got you in trouble already there. That was a great answer, though. So you were born and raised in West Virginia.
Correct.
Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I was the oldest of 5 children. I have a sister who is in the middle of us, and then 3 brothers. And mom and dad, pretty typical Appalachian type upbringing. We had a huge garden. My dad had a job, but it was supplemented his pay by a huge garden, and my mom canned tomatoes, green beans, and we had potatoes, tomatoes.
She canned potatoes?
Sometimes, yes. She would can those, not often, but occasionally. Because by the time spring rolled around, the potatoes that we had picked up were getting kind of wrinkly.
Okay. Sprouts
were growing out of them, but so sometimes she would do that. And then we had a hog. We would have a hog.
Did you
the
slaughter
butcher
her?
Slaughtered her.
Mm-hmm.
And I can still remember making homemade apple butter. And we had some neighbors would get together, a big old copper kettle, and we'd cut the apples up and add the sugar and stir it. And I still have at home the copper kettle that we used, and the big old wooden paddle that we used to do the stirring.
Is there something about the copper?
Yes.
As opposed to like aluminum?
Yes. Yeah,
what is that?
The copper, I think, instills a little bit different flavor from the cooking, and you don't get the contamination. I don't know if anybody ever used aluminum to do that. But anyway, I grew up. We certainly weren't rich. We weren't even. I would say wouldn't even. We didn't have inside plumbing facilities until I was a junior in high school.
Okay, yes. So you had an outhouse.
Yes.
Did it have a moon on the door?
No.
Okay.
I can still remember the location of that, but they took us to church. My mom was one of the godliest women that I can know. She had a heart for the lost, especially when someone was close to dying, and real need. My dad a little bit less so. I can still remember him being Sunday school superintendent when I was growing up. But he was in the Navy and during World War II, and the war had a pretty devastating impact on him. He would never say much at all about him, but led to some alcohol issues later on in life, and finally he gained victory over that. But they took us to church. We saw we got to church. We attended a little non-denominational church. It was called the Oakdale Christian Church, but non-denominational, not of the Christian faith or the church as that background. And the gospel was preached. I hear that I was a sinner and God provided a Savior.
Yeah.
So we were taught many. A lady, one of the moms, Gladys Hardy, taught us songs, and then taught us Bible verses.
Yeah.
And a lot of my memory of the Bible verses comes from that time.
Which part of West Virginia was that?
We're in close to what's called the Eastern Panhandle. It's up in the northeastern part of the nation. We're about an hour away from Washington, D.C.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right. But still in the mountains, though?
Still in the mountains. Not steep mountains. I think the highest elevation around is close to 3,000 feet. So,
It's
pretty
steep for Northwest Indiana.
Steep for Indiana, yes, that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So non-denominational kind of church. It sounds like your mom played a pivotal influence on your faith growing up.
Oh, yeah, without a doubt. She saw that we got to church, even if we had to walk, which we did. The church was about a half a mile, I guess, away from us. But in inclement weather, we would hitch rides with somebody. My mom sang as part of a trio.
Okay.
Her sister and her sister's husband, Uncle Dennis and Burnell George, sang as a trio.
Did they have a name for their trio?
No. I can't remember her name at any time. But the pastor during the time I was saved, Reverend Lowell R. Rogers, held tent meetings. He had a huge circus tent.
Okay.
And in the summer, then he would take that tent, put it up in the areas around, and hold revival services, typically for 2 weeks.
Wow.
And my mom and her sister and brother-in-law would sing, and we'd get drug along.
Yeah, that sounds
with them. So.
Sounds like my grandpa's story. He would do that kind of thing, and his wife would play a pump organ. And
my uncle played the guitar. He was the accompaniment for them.
For the trio.
For the trio.
All right. Do you have any recordings of them?
No, I don't know if there's any.
Maybe we could reenact it, me, you, and Judson.
Maybe.
Maybe not.
Maybe not. You might do your part well, but Mom sang the alto part too. And she never had any training, and I can still remember. And I don't have much musical training either, but my wife taught me a few things. And I know there were some parts that she was singing when wasn't the alto part.
Okay.
I could read the music, but I was never brave enough to tell her.
To tell your wife?
To tell my mom.
Tell your mom?
To tell my mom, yeah. And do that. But we never wanted anything, there was always food, and we didn't have lots of nice clothing, but we had enough to get us by.
Were you homeschooled growing up?
No, we went to public schools.
Okay. Values in public school back then are probably a lot different than they are today.
Oh, much different. At my high school graduation, I was asked to read a prayer, and it was Philippians chapter 4. To be not anxious for nothing, and
the
peace of God will passes all understanding. So, quite a different.
Very different.
Very different.
Very different. Do you remember the moment that you became a Christian?
Yes. It was during one of those tent revival meetings.
Okay.
He actually held put the tent on the church's property.
Okay.
And of course, the tent would hold more people. And I remember during the invitation call one night going forward.
Do you remember what God was communicating to you, or why you went forward?
No, but I do remember this Gladys Hardy, the lady that I had mentioned, saying to me that God is able. There's a little song, He is able, He is able, God is able to carry you through, or something to that part. Her whispering that to me, there while I was at the altar bench. But what he spoke on, no. But I do know that, we were taught that there's a heaven and there's a hell. And I would say the threat of hell was the primary focus on me, turning to Christ.
How old were you?
I was somewhere 9 or 10.
Okay.
I'm not sure, somewhere in that range. Because I remember my brother at another tent revival meeting, and I think he might have been close to 11 at the time, and God urging me to say, Bun. His name's Bun.
Bun?
Bun. Yeah.
B-U-N?
He was born. Yeah, he was Bunny. So He was born on Easter Day,
That's why
1949, and my uncle. That's how I got the name Willie. My uncle named us. He was bad about giving us nicknames, and asking him, don't you want to go forward?
Can we go back to him being called Bun?
Okay.
Like a hamburger bun?
Yes.
What? Because he was born on Easter?
He's born on
and
Easter.
Because of bunnies?
Yes.
That poor guy. Is he still living?
Oh, yes. All my siblings are still. We were able to be together on Memorial Day in
great.
Alabama. Yeah. The three of them came down from. My sister lives in Winchester,
Alabama.
Virginia.
Winchester, Virginia. Okay.
And then my my brothers live in Moorfield, West Virginia.
Okay.
And it's less than about an hour apart there. And then we have a brother that lives in Huntsville, Alabama.
Okay.
And he has a cabin on a lake down there, so we all met there. And a couple other a niece and a couple of nephews came.
Yeah.
So we had a good time. And it's actually about an hour less than driving home to West Virginia.
Home?
Yeah, so I had a good chance, to get with the family. So no, he's had that moniker. Dalton is his real name.
Dalton.
Yeah, kind of like my real name's Galen, but
right.
no, I'm not known. So
yeah, I saw that your real name was Galen on I think it was Breeze, the program that we used, like a directory thing.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, oh, his name is Galen.
Yes.
I wonder what happened if I called him Galen.
I would answer that. My
Did
family.
your mom call you that?
Oh yeah, she didn't like Willie.
Okay.
No. And at home, I'm called Galen.
Your siblings call you Galen.
Oh yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And most everybody at work. I have somebody from church would call it where I want to work, and ask for. They wouldn't know who.
Yeah.
They didn't know who it was.
Yeah.
So yeah, my professional name is Galen. So
Galen
that's
Carr.
what I like to say. Yes.
Your other persona.
But what happened when we went to college? My roommate asked me. I actually had two roommates. When I told him my name, he said, "What do you want me to call you?"
Mm-hmm.
And I said Willie. I'm not sure why I did that. But then I had some friends from high school that went to college with me, so that they called me that already. Anyway. So.
Okay.
So then when I met my wife, then I really went back Willie in college.
Where did you meet her in college?
I was in college, but she had come to college to visit a friend of hers who played football and had broken his leg.
Okay.
And I was the coordinator counselor for the dorm.
Okay.
And I was working the desk when she came in.
All right.
And I don't think she ever did see her friend.
So she came to help a guy with a broken leg.
She came to see him. She and a friend of hers came to see him.
Was it a significant other friend?
No, it was just a friend. She was then and always was very supportive of sports teams. Supporting whether it was basketball, football, or whatever.
Uh-huh. Right, and she coached volleyball for years.
Yes, out here, yes.
So she never got to see that guy, and you...
As far as I know.
Yeah.
So she kept coming back.
What school was that?
It was called Shepherd College at that time. It's now called Shepherd University. It's in Shepherdstown, West Virginia. Yeah.
Shepherdstown. Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds like a Christian school.
No. It
really?
was a state-run, primarily teachers' college.
Oh.
It's right on the banks of the Potomac River.
Okay.
Yeah, and the river played a pretty significant role for the 4 years I was there.
Mm-hmm.
My buddies and I, we'd fish at night. We'd groundhog hunt.
You hunt groundhogs?
Yes. We would.
Just for kicks?
Well, no. We cut the livers out of them and used them for bait for fishing for channel cat in the river.
So you needed bait for catfish?
Yes.
And so you killed the groundhogs to get bait?
Yes.
Okay.
And we had a boat, and we would...
You did it with bows?
No, a boat.
Oh, a boat.
We had a boat that we would travel on the river. And we actually went an overnight camping trip. We had friends take us in the boat way upriver. And then we... And then just 10 or 15 mile trip.
Go downriver?
Went downriver to back to the college. Yes. It was close enough that we could tie to a tree in the river and then walk back to college, the dorms.
That sounds fun.
It was. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Way to spend time.
Yeah, that sounds fun. So how did you and Melinda come to Northwest Indiana from West Virginia?
After college, I got a job. I taught school for a year and hated it.
Why?
And, I didn't study to do that.
Okay.
It was the only job I could find.
Okay.
And as such, I taught 8th and 9th grade science.
Okay.
And I had the worst kids in the bunch. I had a couple of kids who were almost as old as I was, and still in 9th grade.
So you were around 20?
21.
Okay.
I was 21 when I graduated. So I didn't like it. So I got a job that summer on a survey crew for a road construction company, Ryan Incorporated of Wisconsin. And I liked it because that's what I had done the 5 summers during my college career. I'd worked on the West Virginia State Road Commission survey crew. So it kind of fit.
Okay.
And then when school came time to go back, I decided to keep on that job. But anyway, then I lost my job, ended up went to employment agency with one of my friends from college. We both got jobs that ended up kind of being lifetime jobs, or at least the industry. He went to work for Bosch and Lomb and stayed there his entire life. And I got a job with GAF.
What does that stand for?
General Aniline and Film Company. They
Okay.
produced roofing granules. They go on shingles.
Oh, okay.
And then on Easter Sunday, 1986, I received a call from a friend of mine that had come here to Indiana to work for Reed Minerals and said they have an opening for a production manager.
Mm-hmm.
And so I applied.
Okay.
And my wife actually pushed me to come and interview because I had 2 interviews and had to cancel them for some reason or other. And the president of the company called her during the week that I turned that second one down, or something that happened that we had to cancel it, and convinced me to come for an interview. So I did and took the job. And so we had 2 weeks in that summer then of 1986 to get the kids packed, get out here, get them into school. And so I came and took that job. Same basic industry, roofing granules, but they also produced sandblasting materials.
Okay.
And so I'd worked 16 years for GAF, and then ended up 35 or so years out here with them.
So
retired from here.
What was the second place called?
Reed Minerals, a local company. Yeah.
Was it when you started at GAF? Is that when you moved to Northwest Indiana?
No.
When you started with Reed?
When I started with Reed, became
that's when you moved here in '86.
Yes. With GAF, we were first in Pennsylvania, then New Jersey, then back to Maryland, actually, Hagerstown, Maryland.
Okay.
And from there, here.
So northeast kind of part of the country.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And then moved over here. So would you call Northwest Indiana your home?
No.
West Virginia is your home?
Yes.
Once West Virginia boy.
I told my wife I'm a hillbilly. I said, I'm not. She says I'm not. She doesn't claim it, but
but
sure
you do.
But yes, I do very much.
No reason to be ashamed of who you are.
No. That's who I am at heart.
Well, I'm a Tennessee boy, and I understand. And sometimes the office staff ask me why I'm not wearing shoes in the office. I said, I don't have to wear shoes. Why are you wearing shoes?
Yeah. So, we mostly wore shoes, but not always.
So, did you start going to Lake Hills when you first moved here?
No, we actually went to Bethel for the first 4 years we were here.
Now, that was called Bethel Baptist?
It was Bethel Baptist on Whitcomb Avenue at that time.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And our oldest son, Chris's senior year, he dated Nikki Kneisler, who went to Lake Hills.
Okay.
And through that, we became acquainted with Pastor Frank Umber and his wife Terry. And before we knew it, our oldest daughter Stephanie was going there too. And the more we got acquainted with Pastor Frank and Terry, the better we liked it. And our kids went to Calumet Baptist schools from the beginning.
Mm-hmm. Now called Calumet Christian
Schools. And at that time, a lot of Lake Hills was involved with them heavily. So we knew a lot of the Lake Hills people, Chapmans, the Van Treeses, we knew from the contact there. So we liked what we saw in the youth group and the direction they were going. And so we just made the move.
Frank Umber was the youth pastor then?
Yes.
Okay.
Correct. Pastor Adam replaced him in, 2000?
He's been here 23 years, so I think 2001.
Yeah, right in that time frame, yes.
Right after Y2K.
Yes, and Pastor Frank and Terry had a tremendous impact on our kids. Allie was kind of young, and Pastor Adam was kind of the one. She was more involved with Pastor Adam than Pastor Frank.
Okay.
So between that,
Allie's your youngest?
Allie's the youngest.
Okay.
And between that, that was a huge plus for us, and for the kids.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it started out as a little bit of missionary dating, a little bit.
Yes.
And then family kind of trickled over.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So that was. So if you moved in '86 and you said 4 years after, so about 1990.
Yes. Yeah.
Is that how long you'd been at Lake Hills since 1990?
Yes.
So that makes 34 years.
Yes.
Is that the longest you've been at one church?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
We were at Grace Baptist in Waynesboro for 11 years. And
you and Melinda?
Yes. And 3 of our children were born there. And Pastor Huff just passed away about 3 weeks ago now. Who led the church.
I remember you mentioning that.
Yeah.
He started it? Or
he started, yeah. He was there. He was the first pastor of the church. Mm-hmm. And we were there, see, that would be 1971 through 82, or till 82. Mm-hmm. And we built a new church building during that time. But I can still remember, in fact, as part of my card to Mrs. Huff was, how thankful I was for him, his ministry. We were new and young and learning, and the special speakers he brought in. At that time we were doing two-week revival services. Didn't think much about it.
It's normal.
And other than we had a youth group meeting on Sunday nights before main church service, and that's our involvement was with that.
Okay.
We were like 8 years. We were the leaders of the young people, and we had activities every 2 weeks.
So it sounds like you and Melinda have always had a heart for younger people.
Yes. Yes.
Because she was a coach for CCS for how many years there?
22 years.
22 years she was a coach?
22 years.
Wow.
And had never played volleyball at all.
I heard that.
Yeah.
So she must have been was she a Bobby Knight kind of coach?
No.
Okay.
No. Not the yelling, screaming. Her looks, she
had a look.
But she was very fortunate. She became very good friends with a young lady who coached the volleyball team, Becky Nazareth. And Becky was good friends with Coach Casey, Don Casey, who actually played for the U.S. Olympic team. He was a setter.
Okay.
And he volunteered all his time to come in and help coach.
Oh.
And then when Becky moved, then my wife just took over, and then through his mentoring, training, helping. And he wouldn't say much, but he would just direct the practices. And he coached with her for most of the 22 years.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
So that's how, that's where she got her knowledge and skill.
Well, that is a huge advantage to have a member of the U.S. Olympic team as an assistant coach.
Correct. And she and I are kind of alike in that way. I often said to the people who ask, I don't take a whole lot of credit for smarts and my success in the work, and my better skill was to take the people that had the knowledge and let them do their job. Train them, encourage them, and then kind of ride on their coattails. But really, to use them, people it's hard to be the smartest person in the room out of everybody, but if you can use the people that are smart, then you can accomplish a lot,
Yeah.
and manage them. So she kind of did that, the same basis, I think.
Now it's been has it been a year yet since Melinda passed?
It'll be a year next Friday.
A week from Friday.
A week from this Friday.
So today's Wednesday. We're recording this on Wednesday, July 3rd. So it'll be the 12th then.
Yes.
Okay. Still miss her?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe more than before. If
Why is
that's
that?
possible. It's almost as if I, come in the house and expect to see her.
Yeah.
And that seems to be almost a little bit more real right now.
I remember meeting her about a year ago.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
It was it at this house or was it
No, it was at our house.
at your house on the back deck there?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. I remember leaving there and thinking, I wonder if that was like when being with Abraham's wife when he passed away. It kind of felt like that, this godly family all around and kind of being there with her as she passed. That's a special thing. I hope you know how rare that is to have that.
Yeah.
To have had that,
yes.
I mean.
And I can honestly say the 4 years we went there, she was never a burden. Never.
During her time
During
of sickness.
her time, yes.
Yeah.
No. Mm-hmm. And, God was good in the sense that, I was able to sleep. She was able to sleep pretty much all the time. There was an occasional bout with sleeplessness or pain, but not often. And I need my sleep. Yeah.
You turn into Grumpy Willie?
Well, if I don't get my sleep, I get headaches typically then, and get grumpier. Yes, certainly. Yeah. So that was a big help. That was a huge plus through the whole time. And as long as I did that, then I could, handle the rest of it.
Sleep helps a lot. Yeah.
Yeah.
We say the same thing whenever we have babies.
Mm-hmm.
If you could just get some sleep, then
And I still remember her, times having to come get me and said, "You've got to take care of the baby. I need to get some sleep." Crying up.
What have you learned throughout this year of mourning and kind of processing and being a single man?
Well, I guess the thing that I learned most, or the thing that came through, and you continue to say, God, when you run up against obstacles, difficult situations, you just turn to God and say, I trust you. Because that's what he tells us to do. Trust me. And through all those battles she had and the different scenarios that come up, I just hear that kind of voice, still small voice saying, just trust me. And I would say the same is true now. It's, trust me. Kind of like, I know what I'm doing. You're along for the ride. But it hasn't been easy. It seems I'm fighting a harder battle to, keep on keeping on in some sense. Studying the Sunday school lesson seems to be a little harder. Not all the time, sometimes. Seems to be a little bit more of a struggle with the devil, and his attacks maybe seem to be a little bit stronger in that area.
Just recently, or just since her passing in general?
More since her passing in general. Kind of comes and goes. But
did she pray for you a lot whenever you studied?
As far as I know. Of course, she taught her own Sunday school class.
Did she teach the women's class?
Yes, she taught it for several years. Yes.
Trudy Glover is one of the teachers now. Others teaches.
Norma Teeter was the main teacher.
Right.
And then as Norma got a little bit older and needed a break, then my wife took over for her. And they were the two main teachers for quite a while, and supplemented others. So she was in my Sunday school class for a while. And then took over.
Your wife was? Or
Yes.
Okay.
When I first started, yes, she was. in that class too. And I don't know. Do you know John Kessler from Moody?
I don't think so.
He's retired now. Anyway, he was in my class for a while.
Okay.
They attended Lake Hills, and he came Sundays.
Is he like a big wig?
Yeah, he's a big wig from Moody. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, was a big wig. Yeah.
Well, can I just touch your arm here?
Kind of like to share that with people.
Yeah. So it seems to me, I've noticed a trend whenever folks get older and one spouse passes. Oftentimes it's the husband that passes first.
Yes.
And the wife generally does pretty well. Mm-hmm. I think it goes back to how God created Adam and Eve, where he says, it's not good for a man to be alone. Mm-hmm. I'm going to create a helper suitable for him. And so whenever the husband passes and the wife's like, great, I can do some things now, I mean, they go through mourning, of course. But you're kind of in the minority in that with Melinda's passing. Have you had any thoughts about that?
Well, the only thought I have is I'm a little bit different than many men. We're sitting in my daughter's house, mm-hmm. and I walked here.
Right.
It's 500 feet or so away.
Right.
And she has 4 wonderful children. If I walk the other direction, I have my youngest daughter. It's about a quarter of a mile away, with 2 boys, young kids. And the little 6-year-old grandson from this house keeps me busy. Mm-hmm. I'll get a text on the phone, Papa, are you home? Can I come down? Or whatever. So that's been a big help. And that was the case. My brother, the brother that's next to me, lost his wife. She was 58 years old, and he lost her in 2008. And at that time, he had a grandson that was 2 or 3 years old. Mm. And his mom ended up divorcing her dad, his dad. And so my brother kind of became a surrogate father. He was a grandfather. Took him, to the Little League baseball, other football events, and still maintains a very, very close relationship with his grandson. And so Carson plays that part with me.
Yeah.
Somebody looks forward to seeing you and being a part. And he's got a little flower garden out front there. Uh-huh. And so we replanted a sunflower plant from Micah's flower garden.
One of your other grandchildren.
So he went out there this morning because it was kind of droopy yesterday afternoon. But
he was concerned about it.
But it perked up overnight, so we watered it this morning. So that's been, and then our oldest daughter, Stephanie, lives in Crown Point.
Okay.
And we have what we call Family Fried Fridays. And
Family Fried?
Fried Fridays.
Okay.
And my wife started this,
okay.
before she passed away. And so we have everybody that's here that can comes on Friday nights, and I'll typically grill hamburgers. And then we have French fries, and the family would get together. And they do games or whatever. So, and we've continued that tradition.
So the fried is for the fries.
Yes. Fries and hamburgers are grilled, so they're kind of fried.
Yeah, well, you could put a grilled with the word Galen in there somewhere. Galen's grilled.
Oh, maybe add that.
Something.
Do that.
No, I think the name is great as it is.
Yeah.
So
I've had,
your family around you has been a huge help.
Yes.
Right. Because that's a huge change to wake up by yourself.
And Ken Tanis, he lost his wife Joy about 3 months before.
That was right before that we moved here then.
Yes, just before. And he lost his wife with a battle with cancer as well. Mm-hmm. She died on April 17th of last year, 23.
23. Yeah. So just a couple months. Yeah. So it's good to know that you're not alone. Somebody else is going through this with you. And
yes.
So the Lord's good in that kind of way.
Yes,
yeah.
He is.
And I've heard that grief comes in waves. Because I remember talking with you not long after Melinda's passing, and you were saying, I seem to be doing pretty good. And, but it's not, sometimes you're doing great, and sometimes something will remind you.
And Pastor Frank Umber, who had mentioned earlier, sent me 3 books on grieving.
Okay.
And a few others that I've read, indicates it's different for everybody.
Okay.
It's not, and
Not a science.
right. And I haven't really had deep depression. And maybe some of that was that we had 4+ years of getting ready for it.
Right.
So I think that's a little bit different, maybe. And I'd often wondered whether a sudden passing was better, somebody passes away of a heart attack, massive heart, or if it lingered, because my wife's 2 grandfathers. This would be back, I think, in 1970, maybe 71. But her dad's dad passed away, had a massive heart attack, was gone. I mean, immediately. That same year, her other grandfather ended up with liver cancer, and so he lingered on only about 2 months. And
Both
I thought
very quick.
Both in the same year, but pretty quick. But at least her mom's dad, they had some time, to prepare. And I can remember sitting in his living room, and it was raining outside. And I mentioned to him, it's raining outside, and he said, it's raining on the inside too. And they attended the Christian church there in
The same one
Martinsburg.
in West Virginia?
No, not the same one I did. This was the Christian denomination
Okay.
church that they had attended.
Yeah.
But I'm kind of convinced now it's the sudden would be the more devastating. Kind of based on my experience. Had time and you can prepare a little bit better.
Yeah.
And I had almost, well, I hadn't almost, I had given up from when I saw her, when Stephanie and I, my oldest daughter, went to see her in the hospital after the first surgery when they removed part of the pancreas. I didn't think she would make it. I thought she was a goner.
That was near the beginning?
That was that would have been in 2019. Yeah.
And she had 3+ years.
After that, yes, yeah. And Stephanie and I think we discussed it then that she was in such bad shape, because then when they gave her the treatment had a really bad effect on her, and they actually had to stop part of it, or she wouldn't have made it. But she pulled through, so I had kind of, reached that point of saying, it's going to be over soon, and we got 3+ years after that. So every day, every month was kind of a blessing from God, that we did that. And we had it, like 2020, despite COVID, we had a wonderful year. I mean, it was. She was declared in remission after that initial bout of the chemo in January of 2020, and so 2020 was a good year. Only the January 21 it was back, again then. But we maneuvered through COVID and all that ramification.
Yeah.
And she got to spend 13 weeks, I think at least, in California.
Is her
in the
family
summer
there?
No, that was for treatments, through the upcoming treatments. And so she had extended vacation. I spent, I think, about 9 of those weeks there too, off and on, and the girls would spell me at different times. So she enjoyed that.
Is that where the Mayo Clinic is?
No, that was it was a cancer research facility. They did some alternative treatments.
Okay.
And none of it was paid for. Not by insurance anyway, so we paid that. So, but she enjoyed that, and that kind of lengthened her life some too. So my grieving hasn't been like anybody else's, maybe somebody else, but not the devastation that I think I see a lot of people do. But Still hard,
Mm-hmm.
but God's been good through it all.
Mm-hmm.
He's just whispers those words, trust me.
Mm-hmm.
Trust me.
Yeah. And that's an ongoing, a repeated decision.
Yes, yes, yeah. Even now, and for whatever he holds, for the future.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I'm privileged to get to know you in this last season of your life, and look forward to getting to know Melinda someday.
Yes. Yeah, it was nice that you did get to meet her, here.
Yeah, right,
yes.
right. That little bit of time there.
Well, and I appreciate you and what you're doing.
Oh, thank you.
It's encouraging for me to see the younger families coming.
Mm-hmm.
And I am very much behind, a pastor that can direct our young adults. I think that's been a need in our church from the time we were here. We've lost so many young people at that age, whether in some cases it's been, spiritual battles that they're losing, but there's so many young, talented people, that have left their church for whatever reason. And so we need to do something to try to hold on to them.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And in that same set, it's good to see some of those fill in the gap.
Yes.
My age, my generation we just can't do what we did before.
Right.
And there needs to be that generation coming behind, and a generation coming behind that.
Right.
That is going to take over.
Right.
And so that's where I have seen as a weakness in our church over the years, and something that we need to address. And there's positive signs.
Mm-hmm.
That those are people are stepping up.
Yes.
Yes. In interest, which is good. That's encouraging to me. Very much so.
I think Judson and I talked about this on one of the podcasts about the need for us to accomplish the mission that God has given us, which is to see His glory spread throughout the whole world.
Mm-hmm.
Then that just can't happen in one generation.
No.
And so for a generation, whatever generation it is, to maybe disparage younger generations is a kind of subtle way to deny the mission of God's being accomplished. Because we just can't do, the boomers can't do that by themselves.
No.
Is that what you are, a boomer?
Yes.
No, I don't mean that in a derogatory way. Have you used that have you heard that in a derogatory way before?
Maybe more hinted at it, but not directed at me.
Young people maybe it's more online, which don't get in that world. You're not missing anything. No. They'll use the term boomer to be derogatory to somebody your age, But the Lord He raises up new generations to continue His glory and the spread of His glory.
Yes.
So that's great.
Yeah.
Is there anything else that you see God doing at Lake Hills right now that you'd like to mention?
The younger people coming, showing an interest in the church. One of the questions I would have is, I understand Jade Burley is changing direction. She's asked to drop her the support for her. And I read somewhere, I don't remember where the Schultzes, DJ Schultz is at least contemplating the call. I don't know if he accepted the call to be a pastor at a church.
These are two missionaries.
Two missionaries, the Fries.
Right.
And are we looking to replace them, or what is... Because that's one of the things that drew us to the church, is its emphasis on missions. And that outreach there. So that would be... I'd like to see that continue.
Absolutely. We are in conversation with other potential missionaries to replace those spots.
Okay, good.
Don't want to say names yet, but we are in conversation with folks.
Good.
So Lord willing, we'll have all of those spots replaced in time.
Okay, good.
Yeah, look forward to
Yeah.
that. And the church started, when it started, it was give 25% of its budget to missions. If you calculate it today, it's just over 20% today.
Right.
So it's gone down a little bit, but it's still a huge heartbeat.
Yes.
And that's a privilege.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think God has rewarded the church for that, the giving. It's been part of the reason the church has been successful. And
He has a heart for the nations.
yes.
Yeah.
So
have you heard that the deacons and I and Pastor Adam have been talking about elders?
yes.
You heard that we were talking about that?
Yes.
I wonder what your thoughts are on that.
I am very much for it.
Okay.
I've been asked several times over the years why we don't have elders
Okay.
in the church, and it's kind of been just typical we didn't have. But
So what?
both my sons, who are pastors,
Uh-huh.
have elders at their churches, and I believe it's needed more as a spiritual support team for the pastors, and ones that's their primary focus is more on the spiritual duties in the church, whereas deacons would handle the more physical things like counting the money, doing communion, or things like that. And
Taking
I
rounds.
very strongly support
Yeah.
the idea of elders.
Have you ever been in a church that had elders?
No.
Me neither.
Well, the church in Pennsylvania that we
Okay.
attended
For 11
those,
years?
those 11 years, a GARBC related church.
Okay.
I mean, it's almost a duplicate of Lake Hills.
Really?
Started the same year, 1960.
What do you know?
Pastor Huff was a pastor there for maybe 40 years till he left. And then, so, very, very similar. Music, preaching,
Missions emphasis?
missions. I would say, almost identical, yeah. And so none of them had elders.
The one in Pennsylvania didn't have elders? Okay.
So I've not been involved in a church. I think Bethel has elders now, right?
Bethel has elders, yeah.
Yes, yeah. They didn't when we attended back in the late 80s, I don't believe.
86 to
86 to 90.
to 90.
I don't think they had elders maybe till Pastor Steve.
I think Pastor Steve DeWitt was that's what I heard, is he one of the ones that at least led the charge.
And that was after we left. Which I don't know if we'd have left if he'd have been there.
So, what would you say is the biggest need at Lake Hills right now?
It would be filling that generation's, the ones that we talked about before, though. My generation is dying out, and we can't do the work. And so we need the younger ones to step up and take on the leadership. And I see a lot of that being fulfilled. I see more of that now than in previous years. So that's encouraging to me. And so I think if we could do that and try to reach that young college age, newly married, 20-something, 20 to 30-year-old age, and get them involved in church and get them, to fill some of these positions, get the training they need, to be taught. That's where I see the need.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
And I wonder if this is the last question I have on my list here, but we can talk about anything else you want to. But my last question is there any question that you'd like to ask?
Well, the question I already kind of asked, it was about the missionaries.
Okay.
And see, where we're headed in that direction. And I knew a little bit about the elders, and so that's I'll be looking forward to seeing that proposal brought before the church and see that moving forward.
Yeah. So with Pastor Phil Umber, who's my predecessor, of course, he was a missionary himself. He and Sarah were missionaries. I think it was close to 18 years, I think.
I think
Could be
15, maybe. Was it 15?
Something like that. Definitely over 10,
Yes,
nearing 20.
Yes.
So obviously they both have a heart for missions, and not to say that I don't have a heart for missions. My uncle has been a missionary in France for nearly, I think it's going on 40 years now, and my grandfather was the first full-time director of foreign missions for the denomination that Lindsay and I came from.
Okay.
I used to want to be a missionary to India, actually. Anyway, so I do have a heart for missions, but I bring that up to say that Pastor Phil, I gather that he probably knew a lot of these missionaries that we support personally, and knew the organizations and things like that. Well, we're coming from my wife and I come from a totally different network. We heard of the GARBC, we call it GARB,
Right.
but I didn't know anybody from this area, and so I'm learning. I didn't know who Jade Burley was. I didn't know. Is it the Schwartz you said? Or?
Yeah, Scott.
The Schwartz and others.
Schultz.
The Schultz,
BJ
yeah.
and Kathy Schultz, yeah.
And even
Tanzania.
and even the missionaries that we had with us this past Sunday.
Right.
I'd never heard. I don't even know the organization that. So one thing, just to answer your question about the missions, one thing that I've tried to do is to empower and equip some of the deacons to help oversee that part of our ministry. I think at one time the deacons were considered to be like the missions board.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yes, correct. Yes.
Yeah. So I definitely like to reinvigorate that on behalf of the deacons. They can really help because they probably already know some of these missionaries better than I do anyway. So, yeah, Lord willing, we'll see those 3 spots replaced. And
because typically we had like a waiting list, of missionaries that would come through and present their ministry. And then we did have Scotty Staub
right.
was there, 3 weeks or so ago, and Pastor Wilson. And we have
Yes,
some literature.
right,
and,
right.
And our Sunday school classes, we're giving some thought maybe to supporting him or maybe one of those missionaries. And I may even support one of them myself, just $60 a month. We'll support a pastor in India. So I mean,
right. Pastor Wilson, I think he oversees, I think he said 6 or 7 other pastors.
Correct, yes. Yeah. And that was $60 a month for their support. So
yeah. It's a privilege to be a part of that.
It is, and to be able to do that. So, and we have the Lavermans, the Andrews,
Kevin
the Burleys.
Yeah.
Yeah. We have contacts in our church, direct contacts with them. In fact, I have some white chocolate-covered strawberries brought to me specially by the Laverman's son.
From Kevin.
Me, from Kevin, yeah. All the way from Japan.
He brought me squid.
Oh, he did. Oh, I'm glad he didn't bring any of that
Package
for
of
me.
squid. He said it was a joke, though. I didn't know. I had never met him. I didn't know if it was a joke or not. I was like, "Thank you." And so I opened it up and tried it. Of course, it smelled terrible. It looked like it was from like 7-Eleven or something. Like it wasn't even like nice squid. It was like 7-Eleven squid. And so later he told me, that was a joke. No, here's your actual gift, and it was some nice chocolates.
Oh, okay.
But I actually passed that squid around. I think it maybe there was a class or something I was in. And I was like, here, you guys want to try some squid?
From our church in Pennsylvania, Grace Baptist, we have a young lady was there, Debbie Snyder was her name then. She married a Melton from Bob Jones University, and they're missionaries in Japan. Yeah. He was raised there. His mom and dad still serve in Japan.
Dave Melton's?
No. This is Phil Melton, not
Phil Melton's parents.
Yeah, these are from our church in Pennsylvania. She came home from Bob Jones University with a boyfriend, and he wasn't going to be a missionary. And I said, Debbie, it's not for you, because she had promised to be a missionary, and she went back. She came back with Phil later on.
She traded it in for a missionary.
Yeah. I don't know that I ever told her directly, but maybe told her mom. Yes.
Brother Willie, thank you for spending time with me today. Would you mind closing us in prayer?
Okay, sure.
Yeah.
Father, we thank you that we can use that term in calling upon you, for you are our Father. You are a creator, supplier. You have provided a Redeemer for us, your own Son, who is fully God himself. Thank you for choosing us out of the multitudes in the world to be the recipient of your grace. Thank you for the faith to believe in you, to be your very own, and to know that there's an eternity ahead, and through our trust in Jesus Christ, through his righteousness imputed to us, that we will spend that time with you. A time when we will be reunited with loved ones who've gone on before, and we'll have an eternity to spend worshiping you, honoring and glorifying the great God, our great Savior. We are so unworthy. We thank you, though, for coming to us, revealing yourself to us, telling us about yourself to some degree. You are so great we can't even fathom what you are, but we look forward to learning more and more about you. Father, thank you for Pastor Jacob. I pray your blessings upon him, and for Lindsay, and for Meredith and Caroline, and for the new child that you have given, the one growing, that you would bless and care through all of this, and may their time and ministry here be a time of growth, a time of spreading the gospel, and drawing many into the fold. May you just direct him and guide him, and give him wisdom and discernment to know the way to go. And we do pray for that you would give us a music pastor and a pastor of the young adults, need that we see in our church, that you would direct. Thank you for what you have done. Thank you for the blessings and the accomplishments to date. And we thank you for what you're doing in the hearts and lives of our individuals, and we thank you for what you will do. We do pray for the needs in our church. We thank you for many victories recently, the Emerys, Dave Jones, I think, and pray for others with their special needs, and you would just direct and guide them. Thank you for the time together here this day. Thank you for a chance to share fellowship with a brother of like Christian faith, and do bless and prosper our way through the day. In Christ's name I pray and ask it. Amen.
Amen. That was Season 1, Episode 7. This is Pastor Jacob. If you are not part of a church family and live in Northwest Indiana, be our guest on Sunday at 8:30 or 11 a.m. If you have a church family, then be faithful to them wherever they are. If you want more information about our church, then you can check out our website, lakehillsonline.org. We will see you next week as we're coming close to the end of Season 1. Talk to you later. God bless you guys. Bye-bye.